All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Cannabiz Cafe, where we are bringing you not just hot topics of current events happening in and around the globe within the cannabis industry, but also some updates and information and great knowledge from some of our members. And today we are joined by Joel JB Holton with Gro Enterprises, who's going to enlighten us on the industrial hemp industry and also some of the amazing that he's doing in the industry. And of course, we want to make sure that we're networking and use this opportunity to get to know one another as we discuss these different topics. So JB, I'm super excited to have you here as a guest speaker. You have been a part of the Cannabiziac family for a few years now, and I'm proud to say that you're one of our graduates of our business incubator program and one of our amazing success stories as we continue to see your growth. And just so much has happened. So you got to give us a rundown of what's happened since graduation, what you're up to, and the scoop on the industrial hemp industry. So I'm going to turn it over to you, JB.
Yeah, for sure. Anne-Marie and Cannabiziac family, as I refer to them to everyone, it has been a tremendous honor to be able to speak to everybody a few years after we completed the program. And I have to say, if it wasn't for Cannabiziac and the training and going through everything with the workshops I wouldn't have gotten this idea or this concept out of my head onto a formal business plan and into motion. So I tell everybody, if it wasn't for the work I did with Cannabiziac, I wouldn't be sitting here today with any good news or updates, because it was truly an idea in my mind, something I was exposed to that I wanted to do, but I didn't know how to formally get it from out of my head into a formal, feasible business plan. So, I really contribute all of the foundation of what we're doing now to the work we did with Cannabiziac and Anne-Marie and Mary and the wonderful and Keisha and all the wonderful individuals that help facilitate that. So for an update, we are currently working on our second proof of concept project, which is a new construction micro home build in the city of New Orleans that will be built using industrial hemp-based building components. We have two of the major components of the house that will be sourced from industrial hemp-based products. That is the insulation on the exterior walls, ceiling, and floor, as well as a hemp wood flooring that we will be using throughout the build, throughout the flooring of the home as well. We are looking to, just bring more sustainable, climate smart housing solutions to New Orleans and the Gulf South in general. As we know, this area is very vulnerable to extreme and frequent weather events, whether it be just flooding from enhanced rainstorms or full on, hurricane or tropical events that come to the region. And we feel like since our region is so vulnerable to these types of storms, that we need to be at the forefront of finding solutions, both in housing and environmental stewardship, in order to solve some of these issues that we have, especially in our most vulnerable communities of color, which have the highest rates of displacement after these disastrous events. So, it's a focal point for us with this initial this second proof of concept home, that we're actually working with nonprofit partners and the individual and community member that will be housed in this first hemp build in the city's history will be a formerly incarcerated individual who is who needs transitional housing. And we know this is some of the biggest barriers to housing as people come home from incarceration is housing, equitable education and employment opportunities. And we're looking to start solving some of those systemic problems in New Orleans to hopefully, elevate, the most vulnerable members in the community, but also the community as a whole, to show that there are better solutions, especially when it comes to healthy housing, because a lot of our housing stock in New Orleans and South Louisiana and the Gulf South in general is very susceptible to mold, mildew, poor indoor air quality, all these different types of sick building syndromes that go on due to our high heat and humidity and our weather patterns.
That's interesting you say that, Jay, because even as I've been talking to people about what it is that you do, I was talking to a friend of mine the other night who works for an investment banker. And, his question was, he's like, okay, well, that sounds really good. He's like, but what is, and maybe you can shed some light on this, like what's the cost difference between like your traditional building materials? Is the industrial hemp very accessible for construction companies to use and make that transition? Or is it something that's hard for these companies to get? Is it too expensive? Like, what are you seeing when it comes to those two things as far as accessibility and the expense of it for contractors to make that pivot into using the materials that you're talking about?
For sure. Yeah. And those are some of the biggest questions that we get from individuals, whether it's contractors or housing agencies, is like cost, of the material and accessibility. So when you look at the cost, on the surface, these materials in comparison to traditional building materials is going to be about 15 to 20% more if you're using it for, let's say, insulation, for example. But what you have to look at is the value that you get over time. So I'll give you an example. So let's say something costs 15% more to purchase initially, but over the lifetime of its use, you'll save 50% on your overall energy costs and consumption. So that value is still there, through the long term and the life of the use of the product, and you'll actually offset the initial cost burden by the savings that you will have throughout the use of the product. So it's a value add product for sure. And like I said, the initial cost points are higher, but that can also be rectified too, and that's one of the things that we're planning to do by becoming a fully vertically integrated company where we have cultivation and processing locally in order to lower the cost over time. So everybody knows, like, construction costs or labor costs, material costs are set to rise over the next 5 years. But if I can formulate a way to become fully vertically integrated and be able to cultivate and process materials here locally, I can almost say that I will have a lower cost to build over the next 5 years due to the fact that I have a local supply chain here in South Louisiana, or in the region in general. And on the second part of that question, there is a larger domestic supply of the materials now, of the raw materials. So it makes it easier for local operations to develop or build the actual components that will be implemented into the build cycle. So, I see a very bright future for industrial hemp. It's not as widespread as we would like it to be, but I feel like over the next 3 to 5 years, with what we're doing with Gro Enterprises, that we will kind of be the hub operator in the Gulf South to manufacture and produce these climate smart building materials.
No, that's good. I want you to, because I, as I'm out here kind of tooting the horn of hemp, can you elaborate more on like the fireproof, mold proof, the energy saving? I think when we were in New Orleans with you, you were saying that if you leave your house at, let's say, 70 degrees and turn off the air conditioner, like even if it's like 100 outside, would you still be able to come back to 70 degrees? I think you since, have stated some stats around that. Can you talk a bit more about both the consumer benefits of hemp from a building standpoint, and then also from a developer standpoint? Because I think that's where the sell is, and the difference, if I'm a developer, not saying I don't care about what the consumer saves afterwards, but that doesn't impact my bottom line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you like kind of give light to the benefits from a developer who's like, well, this is my bottom line now. And then, of course, the consumer from a sales perspective, those are the selling points for that developer to get the product sold to the consumer.
For sure. So, I'll go first into the benefits to the consumer. Some of the major benefits of hemp building materials, especially insulated material or a finished wall material, is the fact that the material is highly antimicrobial, which means you won't have to worry about mold, mildew, different microbial growth, which is very rampant in the Gulf South areas. Second to that, it is just a more sustainable way to increase indoor air quality. So the material also increases indoor air quality for the individuals that will be living in the unit. So that means you have better health outcomes and better metrics when it comes to health and stability for those homeowners or those occupants of the units as well. And also the material can absorb up to 20% of its weight in water. It can expel that water and not lose any of its R value or insulating value. So basically what we're doing, we're building, for lack of a better analogy, it's like building a Yeti cooler for a home. So that means this unit will stay cooler longer and it will stay warmer longer, which means you will have to use a lot less energy consumption over the time annually to heat and cool and to operate your home. So that means that's an instant cost benefit. So we know a lot of times our Black and Indigenous communities are the most cost burdened when it comes to energy costs and different things like that. So basically, from a developer standpoint, you could say, well, look, I can guarantee you that you will be able to save X amount of dollars annually by using this material if you were to buy this particular housing unit. And that's pretty crucial at this time because for the most point, you're saying that I can put money back into your pocket. And that is very vital as we move forward because we know that energy costs are extremely high right now. And just, it's one of the biggest concerns in most people's households, the rise in energy costs. So if you as a developer say, hey, I can build a home with these materials and maybe I could save you, $150 to $200 annual, or if not more, a month on your energy costs, that's going to be very appealing to potential buyers.
Awesome. So, JB, tell us what you've been up to outside of the micro. Like I saw, like you got a grant recently. You just spoke at another event. Tell us how this has been like game changing for you as far as not just publicity, but like additional resources and things that you've been able to be involved in since, going forward with Gro Enterprises.
Yeah, no, we definitely established a lot of traction over the last, say, 7 to 8 months. We were in an accelerator that was put on by Opportunity Hub, which is an organization out of the Atlanta area, led by Mr. Rodney and Shanteri Sampson of Atlanta. And we were in a cohort of about 55 businesses in the climate tech space. And they selected 5 companies to make an equity investment in. And fortunately, Gro Enterprises was one of those 5 companies that were selected for that equity investment, which is really catapulting what we're doing now. And it's gotten us a lot more attention from other investors, but also housing agencies in the city that kind of peeked their head up and said, oh, we didn't even know somebody in the city was working on something like this. So we have other opportunities for the additional investment and financing and partnerships now since we were able to secure that equity investment. It's just kind of been a whirlwind over the last, I'd say definitely 2 or 3 months as we look to, have other speaking engagements. We just did a master class with the support of OHUB to speak more about my story, what we're doing, and then these projects that are coming to fruition now as a result, really, of the work that we started with Cannabiziac. That, like I said, it really helped me build the foundation to what we were doing. It helped me to get the idea out of my head onto a feasible business plan to move it forward. And we just, really excited the fact that we do have a lot of interest in what we're doing from around the country. We're looking to work with another architect out of the Charleston, South Carolina area that has a whole line of these hemp build designs that she wants to work with us on to bring to fruition here in New Orleans for first-time homebuyers in that low and moderate income, range. So, and that's one of our main focuses and missions as a company, is to make sure that the people most in need of housing are able to use this vehicle to get safe, sustainable, and healthier housing options.
No, that's awesome. I'm going to pause and open it up for questions from our folks here. If y'all have any questions for JB before I ask a couple more.
Yeah, I have a question actually. And your last answer ties into what my question is. I was curious to know, who the application process really to be able to have access to one of these houses. You had mentioned that I believe the person who's moving into this next development is someone who had been formerly incarcerated. So I'm just curious to know, how that person in particular came to be, the one moving into the space, and how do other people, if they're interested, move into the similar spaces?
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. So this development came as a partnership between Gro Enterprises, Phoenix Project NOLA, and the First 72. So the First 72 is a nonprofit organization that helps formerly incarcerated individuals transition back into society and be productive and find, housing opportunities as well as employment and education opportunities. So the First 72 had some land that they were willing to donate to the development in order for us to produce this housing unit. So that's kind of how that all came to fruition. But more on the private side, or like, a private individual, what I would suggest is that you reach out to us directly on our Instagram at Gro_Enterprises, and then start the conversation to see if this build style is something that will be suitable for your needs, but also, is it budget friendly? One of the things that I have developed in doing these initial builds is the fact that I understand the numbers very in depth of what it takes to actually put one of these housing projects together. And it's not as expensive as a lot of people would like to think. And it's actually, with the build style that we're using, which is a prefab modular type of style, it's a very efficient and cost-effective build style as well. So the numbers that we're able to share with potential clients is very attractive and competitive with traditionally stick-built homes. And when you add in the fact that you'll get such higher performance from a thermal, insulative, energy reduction standpoint, but also a higher indoor air quality and environmental stewardship standpoint, if those things make sense to you, then you'll understand the value of the cost, the initial cost because what we try to tell potential clients is that you recoup those initial costs over the time of use in the home or in the building unit.
Awesome. Teresa, are you? Anyone else? Question for JB?
Hi, JB. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. What's up, Mel?
I don't have no questions. I hopped in late. I just want to say hi, and I'm so proud of you. And Cannabiziac surely did breed some really good people, and I've been watching you, and I'm just so proud of you.
Hey, man, that means a lot coming from a fellow Cannabiziac graduate who's also doing some amazing work in your business, and proud of you as well, and just want to see everybody continue to grow and move this thing forward. Because like I said, if you don't have the right support and the right guidance when you're trying to start these ventures, it's tremendously difficult because you don't really know, especially working in the cannabis space, like what the next best steps are. Because when I first was thinking about doing this, I mean, I talked to local developers and contractor friends that I had, and they thought I was crazy. They thought that this was something that would never happen, especially in our state of Louisiana. And they just thought I was wasting a bunch of time. But to get the support from organizations like Cannabiziac and Anne-Marie, it was like, it kind of just strengthened my, intuition or that instinct that you have as an entrepreneur to say that, hey, I think I've got something very valuable here. And so far, the proof has been in the pudding because, venture capitalists do not support things that don't make sense. They don't put money behind ideas that they don't see to have a large scalability. So, we're just very happy to be in a position and, fortunate to get the help and the assistance that we did from Cannabiziac.
No, that's awesome, JB. So I'm going to ask you about descheduling because that's really probably one of the hottest topics in the last 7 days in the cannabis space. What are your thoughts on the DEA making a move and a push in agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services to deschedule marijuana from Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug? What do you think about that move, and do you think that's enough?
No, it's definitely not enough. I think these measures are a good start. It's more of to me, in my personal view, is more of a goodwill measure. But I think all cannabis offenders need to be freed immediately. I also feel like there needs to be more opportunities for legacy operators to come out of the shadows and really be a productive members of this cannabis industry. As someone who has, I say ties to the legacy culture, it is extremely important that these individuals who have been wrongly, I feel, prosecuted for these offenses are made whole. So that's a lot of the reason why it's very, and it wasn't planned that the first person that's going to live in a hemp house in New Orleans is going to be somebody that's formerly incarcerated. I'm not sure if they have drug charges or marijuana charges, but it just shows that the way that we incarcerate individuals for these types of crimes is very unfair and unjust. And I feel like these individuals need to be moved to the front of the line immediately to be able to recoup the years lost due to this unfair war on drugs. So it's a good first step. I think a lot more needs to be done to support, especially legacy operators and businesses who are headed by those who have been unjustly impacted by the war on cannabis. And I just think more needs to be done. There needs to be more resources because, we've passed the ceremonial type of events. Now it's time to actually infuse economic opportunities for these individuals and these businesses to really thrive in a basically a business that was started on the backs of Black and brown people in this country.
Yeah, no, I agree. Anybody else want to chime in on the descheduling news and excitement and non-excitement? Because I think it's been just reading some of the reports and opinions of people. It's been, definitely, I think, hands down, everybody's in agreement that it's certainly a good step, but it's not enough. So I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in.
Well, I don't know what to say other than, yes, it's not enough, but it does show some movement in the right direction. And of course, as usual, the rest of the world is watching because we're anxiously awaiting more than that so that the industry as a whole will be able to fully grow. Right. So it'll be interesting to see how the lobbyists take this and try to get more from it. Right. Because, as you said, it's a goodwill gesture, but we have to continue nudging away to see how much more we can get them to move. And that's going to take a lot of lobbying from all the interest groups to try and get their local governments and everyone else from the down, from the bottom up to get more action and traction from this goodwill measure.
Yeah, I agree. Teresa?
I mean, when I think about what happened in Canada as well, and we federally legalized, each province had the opportunity to regulate how cannabis would be, marketed and retailed. And I think that there's been challenges and barriers and who has, access and how information has been shared in that process, particularly as it relates to, public education around cannabis and health measures as well. So even if it were to move forward and it was legalized on a federal level, it'd be interesting to see how each state would then roll out, what that looked like and who had access and what messaging happened at that level.
Yeah, I think that's the part where, the federal government, it seems like the main things that they would have control over is the taxing and, of course, the regulations, but not necessarily, one state like Florida can say, oh, we'll continue to do vertically integrated versus another state who does not have that and has an open market for everyone to have an entry. So I think that definitely if we're moving in a direction of federal legalization at any point, there needs to be some standardization as it relates to, equitable opportunities, resources on a federal level, and then, some standardization of what states, some guidance for the states on not just the taxing, but also, the entry way into the market space. So that way you don't create monopolies in different states or you don't block out certain communities from, participating in the industry. So I'm hoping that that's what we'll see at some point. But I think, and for those who, I think like removing the 280E is going to be major with the descheduling, because we all know that impacts everything from what these plant touching businesses charge from the farmers to the dispensaries, et cetera, and how they have to jump through all types of hoops for their accounting and their processes and, just everything like that. But then it still doesn't mean that they're going to free everybody from prison. So it's like, what are we doing? So it'll be interesting. And it'll be interesting now that it's considered, even though the FDA hasn't recognized the plant yet as medical benefits. So I think that's the next step. If the FDA now recognizes the plant to have medicinal benefits, then I think we're going to see a big shift in pharma as well. And I think that's something to watch. Is because if you see if pharma jumps in, I think that's going to change the game completely. Because it's now considered it would now be considered a prescribed substance under the Schedule 3, which means that this opens up the doors for big pharma to jump in and say, oh, okay, we're ready to participate now. So I think we have to watch that. And then we also have to watch I think there's three bills that were introduced or reintroduced by Congress as a result over the last few days, reintroducing SAFE, reintroducing, I forget the other ones, but so we got to watch those as well, because those bills are saying, no, let's go ahead and completely legalize. So the banks can be opened up and all this. So I think we're in an interesting time over the next, especially with it being an election year.
That's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that the election year will push things further than people anticipate.
Yeah, like if I was a Democratic Party leader, like cannabis would be on the record, off the record, I would put cannabis over the abortion push. Like that would be on the agenda, but I would let cannabis lead. If I was a Democratic Party leader, cannabis would lead the conversation. Like, let the chips fall wherever they may, but this would be the leading discussion, because there's so many, from a medical standpoint, from a righting the wrong standpoint, from just so many pieces.
Personally, I won't be surprised if it goes that way, Anne-Marie, because many people are not talking about the fact that the economy is not as great as they're saying, right? Mm-hmm. So when I saw it come out, that's the first thing that came into my mind, that I think there's going to be changes. And if I'm wrong, I'll be fine with admitting I was wrong, but that there'll be changes bigger than we're anticipating, because they need money, right? They need the next big thing. Mm-hmm. And the next big thing is to open up with the cannabis.
Exactly. So I think if I was an advisor, political advisor.
And if we're right, remember to say you heard it at Cannabiziac first.
Exactly. So even in my home state of Florida, like the best way to win Florida right now is cannabis. And if they don't use it to their advantage, and the Republicans know that. That's why, like, the governor literally came out last week and said he will stand with the opposition and will fight against legalizing cannabis, because they know that if messaged properly, if the resources are put in properly, it will bring out voters that probably normally wouldn't even vote or care about voting right now. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I totally agree. Cannabis and industrial hemp right now, from an economic development and standpoint, is really second to none, with the different opportunities that can be cultivated through the industry. Like, that's how I really sell industrial hemp in the state of Louisiana. Is like, look, we need to diversify our economic engines in this state, but also to infuse economic development in our more rural regions of the state as well, through cultivation and processing. But everybody needs affordable housing. Everybody needs these solutions. So it's like, what are we really doing? Especially in Louisiana, as we're, 49th and 50th in a lot of different categories. It's like, what do we have to lose to not really bring, more cannabis and industrial hemp businesses and development online? So that's I agree with you 1,000%, and the public support is there as well in these Gulf, especially in these southern states, a lot more than a lot of the Republicans like to admit.
Yeah. Well, I think the key too is going to be you hit the nail on the head about industrial hemp. I know when we're talking to people, and I'm sure Keisha and Teresa can probably attest to this, Mel, we're out there talking to people and we're enlightening them beyond people who smoke cannabis. We're enlightening them beyond the medicinal use and helping them even understand the industrial uses of hemp. People just their minds start turning a different way. They're just like, oh, well, no one ever explained that to me. All I've ever thought was, it's just a bunch of people running around trying to get high. I mean, I'll give you some quick examples of who I've met in the last few weeks, right? There's a woman in New York who is, she's a medical practitioner and a medical scientist. She does DNA testing and sampling and evaluating. So basically like Ancestry.com, right, and those apps, she's able to take the DNA your DNA, and literally drill down to say, based on your endocannabinoid system and your DNA, you're able to, your body responds well to this particular type of strain and this particular type of dosage.
Wow.
Mind blowing.
It's funny that you bring that up, Anne-Marie, because just a few weeks ago, I was explaining to someone, again, trying to deal with their stigma as it relates to the plant. And I said to them, I'm not denying that people will react differently, but I'm sure it's just not being spoken about, the fact that you can, at some point, will be able to go to a physician, right, do a test to make sure you're taking something that is not going to injure your system, but actually help for it to be, restored.
We Code. This is her brochure. It's called We Code, right? And if you've done Ancestry, and we're going to have her as a speaker, if you've done Ancestry, right, she can take your DNA from Ancestry. Sharisa Jackson is her name. She's the founder. She can take that DNA sample from Ancestry and do what I just said. Had no idea, right? Wow. This is the advancement in science that's happening in cannabis. And so now you won't have to just rely on a physician guessing and making a recommendation based on your condition that you may have, whatever that medical condition is. Now you can back it up with science and your DNA to actually confirm that. That's a major. Met another couple. They're in New Jersey. Had a meeting with them because they needed some connections. They were missing a few pieces of the puzzle. Not only are they starting a delivery company because the fiance, he had a cannabis conviction, so he qualified for social equity license for delivery in New Jersey. But they took it a step further. They said, well, the delivery companies, there's no safe and biodegradable packaging to deliver what people have ordered to them and be able to track it to make sure there's no theft, there's no damage, there's no loss of product, et cetera, et cetera. So they looked everywhere. That no one had a security bag, a secure delivery bag. So they have manufactured, they partner with some people in some other countries to manufacture their own secure delivery bag that's biodegradable. What?
Yeah.
So they're going to be launching, as a matter of fact, they sent me their press release last night. They're going to be launching this soon. That's the innovation that we need to spark in this industry and need to be able to tell those stories so people can think beyond just whatever the perception is. And they're going to be on our New York panel as well. So I'm really excited, but I just wanted to share with you all the innovation and creativity and the science that's happening. Dr. Henson is doing telehealth consulting for cannabis through MediRoots, in addition to recommending, various strains and things for his patients. Great information, right? So I just wanted to share that with you all as we all go out and spread the good gospel of cannabis, that there's movement happening, but these people need support. They need resources. They need a community. They need all of that. And we hope to be a part of that as we continue to grow here at Cannabiziac as well. So I'm excited for the industry. Met with a young lady yesterday who's been in the industry 7 years. She's doing a film and she's like, yeah, after I do the film, I'm out. And I was like, what do you mean you're out? And she had her reasons, because everybody is not all, the people who've been in this fight for a while, everybody's not like all warm and fuzzy about it anymore because they've seen the atrocities, they've seen the dysfunction, they've seen the Wild Wild West that's been going on. They've seen the opportunities that are lacking for, Black and brown people, the resources, the money that's lacking for Black and brown people, not being funded, not being invested in. So some people are just over it, and I get it. Right? But I did convince her to
hang in there.
And come be a part of our road show. She said she'll do whatever she can to help us. She'll be there for our New York event. I told her to come talk about the film that she's producing. But her knowledge and the raw and uncut delivery that she has, I was like, your voice is still needed. What do you think? And she's like, well, the film will be my voice once it's finished. And I said, well, that's fine. If it's good, we'll make it a mandatory watch in our program. But it's going to be, I think this road show is just going to be so phenomenal with who we're going to hear from, what we're going to learn, and what others will take away from it. So I'm really excited about our 6-city, 3-country road show.
Yes, indeed.
All right. We have about 3 minutes left before we do some quick announcements. Teresa, definitely want you to close out with what we have coming up. But any other questions for JB? JB, any closing thoughts that you want to leave with everyone?
Well, before he gives his closing thought, my question is, where do you see yourself 5 years from now, JB?
Yes, good question.
Oh, that's an easy one. So 5 years from now, we see ourselves as a fully integrated company where we're cultivating, processing, and manufacturing climate-smart building materials right here in New Orleans and South Louisiana. And we're creating job opportunities for Black and brown people in the city, as well as affordable housing solutions directly for low and moderate income families. So we have a very clear and concise mission of things that we want to accomplish in the region in order to, for lack of a better term, grow the cannabis industry in the state of Louisiana, but also throughout the Gulf South, because we know there's a lot of communities throughout the Gulf South that have these same issues and needs as far as economic development. So that's definitely where we see ourselves in the next 3 to 5 years, really producing at a high level, but also, like you said, creating more opportunities for the greater community to benefit from cannabis and industrial hemp in particular.
For that, JB, I remember when we asked you that years ago. So imagine.
Yeah, no, the answer wasn't that. The answer
I'm
was
so
not that.
proud
No.
of the hard work that Anne-Marie put in that business class.
Yeah, no, it's coming to fruition. I mean, no, this is Cannabiziac was truly the foundation for this vision, and really, like I said, getting it out of my head and into a feasible game plan that has attracted investment. I mean, you know, it's not easy to get people to invest into something they've never seen before. So you have to be very diligent, and it has to be supported by data and information to get that kind of investment into an idea or to a vision. So, and it came from other Black individuals who are looking to promote individuals in the climate tech space. So it's been a remarkable ride, but we got so much work to do. And I understand what you're saying too, Anne-Marie, about the individual, the young lady that's just kind of weary at this point because, you know, you get there. But I tell anybody, you got to be in this for the long game and the long vision in order to really be successful.
Yeah. And that was one of her points too. She was like, you know, she'll tell anyone who is looking to get in the business or the industry, if you're looking to make money within the first, 2 years, this is not the industry for you. And she's like, for those people who are looking to come in and make, to do anything and make money, if they're, if they're pivoting from something else and saying, okay, I want to, make some money within 2 years, I want to make X amount of dollars. She's like, she's going to tell them straight up, cannabis industry is not for you, because this is not a industry that you just jump in and you're going to make a lot of money in a short period of time. It's not that. It's, you got to have some long game, some staying power. And she was like, even depending on what you're trying to do, you got to have some capital. And if you don't have the capital, it's going to be hard for you to, stay in. And she was like, she knows people that's literally mortgaging their houses, using their 401ks. And she was like, she just doesn't, her personally, she was like, if you're looking for that short gain, she couldn't lead anyone to believe that that's going to be what happens in this industry at this time, with so many different layers and things that you have to deal with. And so I said, no, you're absolutely right. Even when we started Cannabiziac, we knew this was a marathon, not a sprint. We knew as a business, this wasn't going to be like, oh, Cannabiziac is going to be like making all this money in a short period of time. We have a long ways to go, so same thing with anyone that we're advising, which is why I told her, I said, well, your voice is still needed, because people need to understand the realistic path in this, especially if you're not a white male with money. And if you're not a celebrity, like an NFL player, et cetera, with money that can just, use your name to come up with a brand and have that brand added to a dispensary. You don't even know where the product came from. You just added your name to a brand, right? So if you're not one of those persons, then yeah, you are in this for the long haul, and it's going to be challenging, and you got to be prepared. And so I just told her, like, we need people like you to give the real deal to people and not sugarcoat it for them. So yeah, that's that's where we are. But I want to be mindful of our time. I think this has been a great discussion. JB, we are so proud of you. Thank you for all that you have done and what you're doing, and your passion for not just being successful in business and in being a successful entrepreneur, because that's important, but also your passion for community and really bringing others with you. We appreciate that. We applaud that. And thank you for just sharing with us. And Teresa, if you want to close us out with what we got going on. And JB, we're going to be inviting you back a lot.
Hey, you can't ask me to do nothing. Like whatever y'all need for me to do, I'm there with bells on, because, without this foundation, I wouldn't be building what I'm building now. So anytime you need me to do anything, you already know, Anne-Marie, it's on. Don't hesitate. and anything I can support Cannabiziac, whether even working with y'all's future cohorts of just having, any kind of mentoring or whatever you need, you already know how I am. So I'm with it.
All right. A few months from now, fall, new cohort launching. So
let's get it.
Mind those words. You're gonna have to get extra time.
Yeah. I'll make it.
And Mel, you're in the room, so you too, be ready.
Yeah, she knows it.
Teresa?
Amazing. For sure. So coming up on May the 15th, we have the Cannabiziac University. And so that will be an online, again, networking event, but it will be in conversation with Jenna Valeriani. And so Dr. Jenna Valeriani works for the Ontario Cannabis Store, who is essentially the distributor of all cannabis products throughout the province. And she's going to be talking about the social impact report that the OCS has undertaken. And in her words, she says, the social impact report invites Ontarians to learn more about how we're driving positive change and supporting environmental sustainability, diversity and inclusion, and cannabis literacy in Ontario. So it should be a really enjoyable conversation. It's new material coming forward by the government and their consideration of the impact that they're presenting or they're having. So I look forward to that talk with Jenna. And then on May the 29th, we have our Book of the Month speaker who is coming to us from Jamaica, and his name is Robert Moore, and he'll be talking about moving to Jamaica during the pandemic and deciding to turn the family farm into a ganja farm. It's a very short story, but his trials and tribulations along the way are captured in his book, and he will be sharing that experience with us. So again, another brilliant story of folks who are making it in this industry, just, on a vision and seeing themselves through. So that's what we have coming up.
The road show?
Oh, right. And the road show. So on May the 30th, we have the road show starting off in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale. So again, it'll be a full day event as it moves through the 6 cities. The morning half of the events are panelists and presenters that are speaking about different aspects of the cannabis industry so that the participants in the room can, learn from their experience and apply that knowledge to their own business venture. So we're encouraging folks to come with their ideas or folks to come with already businesses that are pre-existing and look at ways to refine what it is that they're doing so that they can become more successful in the space. We'll be talking a lot about business fundamentals, Cannabis 101, and cannabis in the healthcare space. So the roadshow, as I said, is kicking off in Fort Lauderdale on May the 30th, and then it's moving into Toronto on June the 8th. And then after Toronto, it's moving to New York on June the 18th in New York City. And then to Arizona on June the 21st. So a lot of trekking and trotting through the states at that point in time. And then taking a quick dip down into Jamaica, July 2nd. And then back to Chicago to end the show on July the 29th. And for all of the shows, it's the same format where it'll be speakers and panelists in the morning, and then the opportunity to exercise these skills and thoughts into your own cannabis. And one thing I forgot to mention is that any person what we'll be doing is having an opportunity for a pitch during the second half of the show. So the patron who pitches most successfully wins the chance to, how do I say it? They win a chance to have a free enrollment in our Cannabiz University in the cohort that is most applicable for them. So maybe it's the business fundamentals cohort, maybe it's the, Cannabis 101 deep dive cohort, but they get that opportunity to, attend free to build upon their business. So lots of work coming up from now until I would say the end of July. And then following that, the cohorts will start themselves I'm not as versed on the dates of the cohorts, so I'll get back to you at the next Cannabiziac University with those dates. Make
So
sure.
I can tell you now, orientations is
Okay.
August 14th. Orientation is August 14th, and our Fundamentals of Entrepreneurship and Cannabis 101, the deep dive, starts the week of August 26th. And our medical practitioners, or Cannabis for Medical Practitioners, starts September 9th, which is right after Labor Day. And it will run for all the way through mid-December, which is going to be our graduation. I believe graduation is December 15th, if I'm not mistaken. So we're really excited about our upcoming cohort and what we have going on. So, and we'll be announcing and posting the application hopefully within the next week. And payment installments will be available, all that good stuff. So you all can start spreading the word and helping us, get the word out and recruiting for the fall.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, JB. Thanks, team, for being here. And much more to come. As you see, we have a full lineup in May, and the summer is going to be super busy. So please, when you see our information, spread the word, share it with everybody. Let them know that, Cannabiziac's the real deal and they need to get involved.
Thank you so much. For sure.
Thank you all. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.